Hey there, my name's Jason. I'm a graphic designer and I work out of my son's bedroom. It's right behind me. And you're wondering, what does a graphic designer have any business telling me about anything when he works out of an 8-year-old's bedroom? And I would say back to you, probably none. But what I do, what this channel is all about, is I want to show some things, share some things that I've learned. Just little things that don't take any amount of time and can go a long way in impressing clients. And I hope you'll stay with me on this journey. It's going to be fun, and it's going to get started right now. Today's topic is going to be about adding subtle animations to your next website design project. So if you have a client and you want to impress and you're kind of at the end of the project and go, hey, how can I add some additional elements to my design work? We can use animated GIFs to accomplish some very cool things without overwhelming the developers with a ton of SVG scripted type of stuff. We're just talking subtle little things. There are a few downsides when you do an animated GIF, and I'll cover those. Also, when I say animated GIFs, I'm talking about ones made with vector files, not ones like Kim Kardashian where you send yourself or send a friend a hilarious Jiffy from your phone. These are something different. So we'll cover how to do that. Just before we get started though, a couple things I'm going to assume. One, I'm going to assume that you're fundamentally familiar with Adobe Illustrator. You can do basic things, you understand vector graphics. And two, I'm going to assume you have access to a platform like Adobe Animate or some equivalent platform. I actually don't know what that would be. But if you have those things, I think we're good to go. So we're going to move right into Adobe Illustrator. All right, here we are inside of Adobe Illustrator, and I'll just give you the lay of the land. We've got the kind of the Essentials Classic view. Nothing fancy going on. I've got a Pantone library open from Swatches panel. If you don't know how to find that, you can go down here, this little library button, and you can find kind of your Pantone libraries inside the color books. Enough on that. Now we've got 3 artboards of 3 isometric illustrations. We're going to use them for like an energy company or an electrician. And I've chosen to show you quick animation with this middle light bulb here, this middle illustration. So let's just go in close. So we're up close now, and we're going to do a couple things. So we've got to make several copies of our light bulb. This can be accomplished in Animate, but I like to do as much as I can in Illustrator simply because I'm more comfortable with it. So we'll grab our direct selection tool, and we will drag out some copies of this. So let's make 4 copies. And the more frames you can do, obviously, the better it's going to look. But this illustrates the point, no pun intended. And then we're going to open our gradient tool, or our gradient panel, I mean. And we are going to make a radial gradient, and kind of white is going to be the brightest the bulb's going to get, and this yellow is going to be the darkest. So hopefully it's easy to see. So we'll switch back here, and we'll select one of these, and we're going to start making a radial gradient. So let's just do that. Oh yeah, it converts it to that one there. Ignore that. And we're going to move kind of in a white direction. And actually, we'll just make this other end of the gradient just white. Let's reverse that, as we want the white to kind of grow in the middle, but not quite the middle. So we can grab our our gradient tool over here. And we can just start, oh, that's a little, and we can just kind of start this guy like that. Great. So essentially have one frame, go around, we'll select this next guy, and we can just use our friend, the eyedropper tool. I'm not using shortcuts. I'm clicking on things just to make, sometimes when I watch videos and everybody's just hitting shortcuts, I have difficulty following. So we'll grab our eyedropper tool and we'll just make a copy of that. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't copy the gradient over. I suppose we could have just made more copies of this, but oh well. And then we are going to take our gradient tool and we are just going to make that a little larger. And same deal with the fourth one. Actually, we'll just delete that. And we'll delete that one. And we'll just make a copy of this. And we'll take our gradient tool here. And we'll make this a little wider. And we'll just tweak it a little bit. So it's a little bigger. We want to keep it kind of in the same spot. And we'll make a copy of this guy. And you get the idea. It's getting brighter. And we'll just make that. I don't like that. Kind of like that. There we go. So we've got our light bulb, starts to flicker and gets bigger. And you can see the more frames we add, the better. So that's what we're going to do in Adobe Illustrator. Now we're going to switch over to Adobe Animate. So now we have Adobe Animate open, and if you've never used it before, welcome. It's not as intimidating as I thought it was, at least for easy things or simple things. So we're going to create a new document. Just drag this over, and we are going to make the width 500 by 500, by 500 pixels. And instead of an artboard, let's call it canvas or a stage. And we're going to create that. And we meet up with kind of the default view of our canvas and stage. And we see the document settings here, 500 by 500. And in the end, you can change them here. And you can actually scale this to fit the content that is going to be useful. And down here, we have what's called the timeline. I'm just going to drag that guy up a little bit. And over here, we have kind of our usual vector design suspects. Like we've got the paintbrush, the pencil, shapes, typography, the eyedropper. But we've already done our work to begin with. So what we're going to do now is bring those assets in. And down here, we have kind of the same layers layout as Adobe Illustrator and frankly anything that works with layers, but it's also got the concept of time attached to it on the right via this timeline. And I'm going to make this easy. I'm going to flip back to Illustrator. We can use Creative Cloud libraries for this, but I'm just going to show you. And the first thing we want to do is I'm just going to move these out of the way, is grab this guy in its entirety is kind of like the base animation. And we'll just Control-C, Control-V this right on to the stage here. And when we go to paste something, very important when you're copying it from Illustrator, whether you do it the CC library way or whether it's just straight copy and paste, this dialog is going to come open and it's going to ask you if you want to paste as a bitmap or if you want to preserve the vector paths. And even further, we can maintain layers. So we're going to say, we're going to go with the default, and we just kind of want everything preserved. And that's going to bring everything from that I highlighted, and it's going to go into a single layer. So it's not going to recreate the layers that we've done in Illustrator. It's all going to get slapped into one layer, and that's important because when we're moving things or when we're animating things, we want to separate the things we want to animate on a layer. So we'll just drag this fellow right into the middle. Typically your same keyboard shortcuts work here. So we've got our guy and a light bulb, and we go down to the timeline, and we want to do this we said our animation was going to be 30 seconds long. So you can see down here, our frames per second for the document was set at 30, which I believe is the default. And down here from left to right, we have the frame count, and it's Animate's done a nice job of just reminding you of the time in seconds, 30 frames, 1 second, 60, 2 seconds, etc., etc. So we want this part of the animation to exist throughout the entire duration of it. And to do that, we're going to start at frame 1, and we're just going to click out here to frame 30. And you get used to right click. You want to right click, and then you want to add what's called a keyframe. So you're going to insert a keyframe here. And now here's the playhead. I can drag the playhead back. So this guy exists in sort of the animate on the stage for 30 frames. And then after that, it goes away. Then what we're going to do is we're going to drag a new object, or we're going to copy a new object. We're going to bring our light bulb pieces over with varying degrees of shimmering. And we're going to do those one at a time. And they're just going to kind of copy in onto their own individual layers. So Control C, Control V, same dialog. Okay, now we see our light bulb is copied and another layer has been created. Here's a real tip. Animations can get quite complicated, so we always want to name our layers. So we'll just call this one Platform Guy. Oh yeah, you can't put spaces in layers. I don't know why. It's a real restriction. And we'll just call this sort of L2 or light 2, not layer 2. And we'll drag this guy on top, and you can already see where I'm going with this. And so we'll copy our next guy in, Control C, over to Animate, Control V, takes a sec, same dialog, new layer down there. I'm not going to bother renaming it for these purposes. Let's just zoom in here. I'll make sure we are placing these guys over top. So I've got our third one here, Control C, Control V this over. Puts it right in. I know we didn't change that one much, but you get the idea. And kind of the last one here, Control C. Back to Animate, Control V. And paste that over top. So now we've got a layer for each of our light bulbs, and as well for kind of our base animation. Now you'll notice when I pasted those in, they all pasted to where I have the playhead. So I had the playhead at the end of the animation. So these guys are going to exist to the end of the animation, but we don't want that. We want that to change. So let's change that. So I'm only going to show you one at a time here. I've got the other ones hidden. But we want this part of the animation, this glowing white thing, to live and die sort of starting at 5 frames in and then ending its life at the 10 frame point. So we're just going to grab this guy and click the left click, hold it down, and you see that little box there. We're going to drop it on the 5th frame. And then the playhead jumps to the 5th frame. Now, if we go back, it doesn't exist, doesn't exist, doesn't exist. 5 frames in, boom, it comes to life. Now, we don't want it to exist until the end. We want it to die at, say, 10 frames. So here at the 10th frame, is that the 10th frame? Here at the 10th frame, we are going to right-click it. And instead of inserting another keyframe, we're going to insert a blank keyframe. And it's going to go away. So 5, and boom, it's gone. Great. So let's look. We'll move the playhead back to the start. And we'll reveal this part of the animation. And now we want to start that kind of at the 11th frame. So just 1 frame beyond that. Actually, we'll just we'll hold this guy down so we get that white box, and we'll drag that out there, and we'll go another 5 frames along or so. Clearly, I'm not good at math. And we insert a blank keyframe. Okay, that was 1 frame shorter. You get the idea, though. And now we go take this guy over here, past that one, and he lives for another 5 frames. So we're going to select that 5 frames out. And we are going to insert a blank keyframe. And let's drag our final one out. Sometimes it's tricky to drag these things. Drag that out. And that's going to, we'll reveal these. And that guy is going to kind of last for the duration. So here we are kind of at the end, and we've got all of our layers and the animation worked out. When you go to test it, we can just hit this play button right here. And it kind of flickers white. It kind of bounces around there a little bit. I think what we want to do is, this is all 30 seconds long, and we don't want the light to flicker that often. So we're just going to extend the animation out another 30 seconds. So the platform guy, our platform, an original light bulb holder, he goes, we'll just drag this ending keyframe out to 2-second mark, 60 frames. I think I mixed that around earlier. And now let's see. So light bulb flickers and then nothing. Okay, not the smoothest, but you get the point. Now comes the easy part, which is exporting your work. Bring it in. See a flicker. And now we are just going to export this guy. So go down to File and Export, and we see we want an animated GIF or GIF. And we'll come up to the export screen. A couple things you should be aware of. GIFs have some color limitations to them. So I don't think you can use more than 256 colors. So be careful of that in multi-stop gradients. You might want to avoid a ton of stops in your gradients. The only thing is I've got transparency unchecked. I'm going to leave that unchecked, and we're just going to go with the white background. Bunch of other settings here. Learn about them. Doesn't really matter right now. And we're going to save this person, this animation. And let's just put it on the desktop. Call it demo electrician. Demo electrician. Save him on the desktop. Now let's minimize this. minimize this. Somewhere we have, and we'll just drag this guy over. It was on the other monitor, our demo electrician. Double click that. Everything's showing up on the other monitor. And if you look closely, that's actual size. And we can see our light bulb just do a shimmy thing there. Not many frames, not the smoothest, but like 5 more minutes of effort and you've got it looking awesome without knowing a ton about animation. So finally, I'm just going to show you one of these things in a larger context. We've got Adobe XD open, and this is the website I've been working on. And here is where the animation fit in, is kind of right here. So really, it's going to be an Animate, or Adobe XD doesn't do GIF animations, but really all that GIF is going to do is just kind of flicker every once in a while where that was. And that's really all there is to it. So that really brings us to the end of the video here. Just to recap, I try to do everything in Illustrator before moving into Animate. I think that's a good tip. My other piece of advice is only do this on sort of small objects, small vector objects, because an animated GIF or GIF won't, it's not responsive, it won't resize. So you have to consider mobile in all of that. Have that conversation first. Consider that first before you use one of these. And if you can't make it work with an animated GIF, you'll have to unfortunately go with a more sophisticated technique, which you can find on a video that's not mine. So I hope you learned something. I hope you took something away from this. I am not an animator. Clearly you saw that, but you know, it's just a little hack to maybe bring some life to your artwork without killing yourself learning to animate. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, leave a comment, leave a like, all that stuff. Till next time, I'm Jason Hogg, and I'm a designer in my son's bedroom.